Thank you, Brett, for that introduction or setup, one of those two things. But I would love to congratulate all of you, and Stephen in particular, for bringing together this incredible mix of founders, investors, thinkers, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive, and a few representatives from government in this inaugural Founders Forum ClimateTech Summit. Fantastic. And it's also right, and I'm very proud that you've chosen to host this in London and in this historic institution, the Royal Institution, founded in 1799 on this site for the whole of its life, founded to improve science and technology for all, and a rather better, this is an older building than the current Houses of Parliament, and with its banked seating in front of me, it's like a rather sort of younger and better looking version of Parliament. So congratulations too on your timing. Just after the G7 in Cornwall, where climate was a key part of the agenda, and with just 20 weeks to go until the UN Climate Summit, the whole world comes to Glasgow. The whole world comes to Glasgow. We welcome them here, but we have some very serious business to try and save the entire planet. So it's no exaggeration to say that in climate, this year in particular, we live in historic and interesting times. I think the UK government is really leaning in now to this agenda. We have committed to a world-leading target, which would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by a staggering 78%. I mean, you're used to big exponential numbers, but there's not that many factors of production in life where you can aspire credibly to reduce something by 78% by 2035 compared with 1990 levels. And that's just one facet or aspect of our ambition. We've got similar ambitions for the oceans, for biodiversity. The G7 this weekend backed our 30 by 30 call to save at least 30% of the global ocean by 2030, underpinned by a new Blue Planet Fund. And altogether, the UK has committed £12 billion into international climate finance. It could always be more, but that is a very, very significant down payment. So action from our global leaders is an imperative, but make no mistake that when that climate summit is over, when they tidy up the chairs, put away the masks or whatever we're going to have to do, it's technology, innovation, entrepreneurship, and the deployment of risk capital that's actually going to save us, that's going to deliver. And in a free society, it's by collaboration, not confrontation, that we get things done. We've got to bring people with us. Business and private capital is the solution, not the problem. As the Prime Minister's net zero business champion, one of my roles, when I've found a shorter job title, is to ensure that the government does all that it can to harness what I call the ferocious problem-solving power of business on the climate agenda. That's you guys. It's precisely that same force, by the way, that's let us meet here today, albeit with some restrictions. Just 15 months after the start of a global pandemic, really the world's first global pandemic, with 2.2 billion people now vaccinated worldwide, 30 million of them here in the UK. Generationally and attitudinally, all of you here today are critical to making the future we wish to see. Because I think you see, because you're here, more clearly than most, that we're on the threshold of a new climate tech revolution. A revolution that's not only going to save our planet, but one that's going to see whole new sectors of the economy come into being. No aspect of human life will be untouched. Thousands of billion and trillion pound companies will be created, and many of those that we regard as core today will fade away. We're going to see entirely new forms of clean energy, such as fusion, sitting alongside those which may be small today, but which will become the dominant sources in the future. Transportation systems will be reinvented with zero carbon aviation, autonomous hydrogen-powered ships, and radically different urban transport solutions. Proper circular economies will be established in everything from food to clothing to green glass, steel, and aluminium. And all of this powered in your former lives using natively smart networks, ubiquitous connectivity, and data unlocked by the power of quantum generation computing. Every day, it's the best thing about my role. Every day, I encounter innovators building or investing in this future, many of you in this room right now. Brent, you asked me to specifically address the role of government and climate tech together. And there's 5 specific things I think government needs to do. To set out a clear long-term policy framework that's joined up, be nice, and consistent. To create common standards and rules. To mobilize and deliver the physical and skills infrastructure. To support entrepreneurs and risk takers, and then together to help change consumer behavior. On policy, I believe for once, government policy is really clear. We've passed a legal commitment to country-level net zero by 2050. It's the law of the land. It's the very highest form of commitment any government can make. In the coming months, we'll publish a comprehensive net zero strategy setting out the government's roadmap to transition to the net zero economy. We've already published the Energy White Paper, an industrial decarbonisation strategy, and the first phase of our transport decarbonisation plan, with the heat and building strategy and a hydrogen strategy to follow soon. So together, these add up to what I call the demand curves for the new low-carbon economy, and should give all of you a clear direction of travel to aim for. A new world needs new standards. At its heart, decarbonisation is a resource optimisation problem. Data has a huge role to play. Common standards and an open approach will allow innovators to make the best use of that data. And there's a business opportunity from the UK being the country to take the lead in setting those standards. So the UK will become the first G20 country to make carbon disclosures mandatory and will implement what's called a green taxonomy, a common framework for determining which activities are uniformly agreed as environmentally sustainable. But our single largest role as a government is creating the infrastructure for that low-carbon economy. The smart grid, wind farms, carbon sequestering plants are the coalfields and the canals of the next industrial revolution. You may have heard, he'll hope you've heard, of the Prime Minister's 10-point plan. It's unusually clear by Whitehall standards. It spans clean energy, buildings, transport, nature, and technology. It includes quadrupling offshore wind capacity by 2030 and bringing forward a new generation of small modular nuclear reactors. Pioneering hydrogen. We've put aside 500 million and we're working with industry to create 5 gigawatts of hydrogen power capacity by 2030, as well as developing plans for the world's first hydrogen-heated town. And we're investing 1.3 billion into EV charging infrastructure and another billion to support the electrification of UK vehicles, including establishing a number of battery gigafactories. But no one wants to see the new world held back by incumbency or incumbent thinking. Innovation is at the heart of our plans, and we'll support development of cutting-edge technologies with a 1 billion net zero innovation fund. Some of this is set aside specifically for disruptors, and I hope much of that's going to flow to people in this room today. And alongside this, we'll invest in the UK's single most important asset, our workforce. To support this, we've launched the Green Jobs Task Force, and we're investing another 400 million in STEM education. And I want to make clear, this government is on the side of founders and risk takers. We know you have a choice, and that the UK has to remain the best place to grow, start, and to run a business. That means competitive tax rates, visa programs for innovators and those starting businesses, and support for all of those raising capital. TechNation report that the UK is already a hub for green technology and innovation. We're over $1/3 billion received in investment in net zero companies last year. You guys are precisely in the strike zone of innovation, clean growth, dynamic and diverse businesses whom we want to support. Finally, government wants to work with you to help change consumer behaviour. Many of you yourselves are already coming together to address this issue. Backed by TechNation, the Tech Zero Task Force is a fantastic example of a business-led initiative encompassing some of the UK's best tech brands like Monzo, Olio and Vodafone. And a shout out, I don't know if he's here, for Hayden at Bulb, who's leading this. And it would be great if all of you here today could contact him and join in. So in the interest of time, I'm pretty good on time, I will finish, and I'm happy to take questions. But to conclude, friends, we've got a big task, but we've got an even bigger opportunity. We're all leaders, and we're all each other's keeper on climate. As technologists, we should embrace revolutions. They disrupt the status quo and create opportunities for change, to tear down the old and establish the new. The entire span of human history, much of it embodied here in the Royal Institution itself, teaches us that the future we create, indeed the one you're creating, can be better, healthier, cleaner, and more sustainable than what came before. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Is this working, yeah? Thanks very much, Andrew. Fascinating overview. You touched on so many subjects there in just 10 minutes.
See the people behind.
Oh, you've got a mic on as well. Sorry, sure, yeah. So fascinating. So what we've done is we're not allowed to handheld mics because of safety, and we don't want people to shout answers because of safety. So we've got some pre-submitted questions. Yeah, but I have them here actually. So we're not going to interact with you exactly because we're not allowed. And we've got about 8 minutes to get through some questions. So maybe 4 or 5 questions, 1 to 2 minutes. So firstly, from Benjamina, the founder of Higher Stakes, who's here today. I am a founder of a cell-based meat company. We've raised over £4 million. My question is, other than the FSA, are there people in the government we should be speaking to? And do you expect Brexit Britain to regulate cell-based food quicker than the EU?
Yes, I think we aspire in lots of areas, just as we have in financial regulation with sandboxing a little bit. I don't want to take this too far, a little bit as we were able to with medical regulation, MHRA. We aspire to be a more dynamic regulator. That we're in a competitive world, we know that. And so the speed of regulation and giving people clarity where they stand is one of the key things that we can do. I would talk to lots of people in government. I mean, government is a multi-headed beast. We have different departments. And one of the challenges of being an innovator and a disruptor is that the departments and the silos we've built for the past don't often map perfectly across to the future. So I would talk in plural, talk to me. I mean, there's just one of me. There's a lot of people in government, but I can try and help you navigate that a little bit.
Benjamin,
and there are so many exciting things going on.
I can't see you, Benjamin. Benjamin, hi. So he's here most of the day. Here. Andrew's here, so yeah. Find him shortly.
And lots of really exciting things that we can do in this whole food domain space. We've got to make better use of our land and our natural resources. So.
Great. So and now on to agriculture. So similar from Ben, the founder of Small Robot Company. Thank you, Ben. Every other country in the G7 is investing significantly more in climate-positive startups. The UK is pursuing free trade agreements with these countries, putting UK-based startups at a significant disadvantage. How can we compete?
I'm not sure I buy that. I don't want to debate. We can properly debate it later, but we've just established the Future Fund Breakthrough, which has got direct money in it for the startup community. We've protected the startups throughout the pandemic. And the Net Zero Innovation Fund, which is close to my heart, absolutely has money set aside for some of the biggest challenges in society just generally, but also for disruptive approaches to that, precisely for that sort of reason. So there's probably a little bit more we can do to help people navigate that. So when you go from feast to famine, we can probably do a better job at communicating where the right places to go are. And the best thing we can always do is create that broader environment. So whether we sometimes co-invest as a government or not, I think that point about skills, making sure that we've got regulatory frameworks that are modern and let people experiment, that's probably the core of what we can do. But again, very happy to, I think we met before, but I'm very happy to pick up on that.
It's a shame we can't do a debate right now, but we don't want you to shout, Ben. It's okay.
Oh, sorry, that's a bit asymmetric, so I get the last word. Right.
And
we'll have some fun with that.
And Andrew hasn't seen any of these questions, by the way. And actually, on that note, the technology is working. So to Joe from Geeky, I haven't seen Joe today, but must be here. How important is individual behavior change in delivering UK net zero targets, and how will government drive this in the next 12 months?
I hope this isn't controversial. I think the biggest challenge is getting solutions that consumers find frictionlessly easy to use. I mean, if you're trying to change behavior, the best thing you can try and do is minimize that gradient between what you do now and what you're going to do in the future. And we've seen that in some domains. It's trite, but in vehicles, we've got to the point where driving, it wasn't the point 9-10 years ago. Today, you can get in an electric car, you can get away and drive it. The total cost of ownership, not the upfront capital cost, but the total cost of ownership is already at par. And that's become a very frictionless experience. So we're giving customers choices that they can make, what we used to call at Sky, sort of fall uphill pricing, right? It's so easy to do that you virtually fall into it. Those are the best, most empowering things, because changing human beings is hard. It'll take a little bit longer. But there will be some things, and I did celebrate because I think in tech, you have really powerful brands, and brands that have great advocacy. Brent talked about Pangea, probably pronounce it wrong, Pangea. That's fantastic, right? So it's tapped into a market that was already latently there, but it's also delivering a solution that's great, that's good, that people want to wear. The more that we can do that, you're going to build fantastic businesses. So I'm not a massive fan of government sticks, though there may be some in some areas.
Right. And there was a question there on carbon, but also one here from Henrietta from Carboculture. So matching those questions.
There was one on coal. Don't skip over it. I mean, we're not. The answer is we're stopping really, really, really quickly. We've stopped funding any coal overseas as part of the UK. The UK has export guarantee programs. That stopped. So there is no money flowing from the UK to support coal anywhere in the world. We will very shortly, weeks, if not days, be burning the last gram of coal to create energy. That's going, and then you're left with a certain amount of small, hard-to-abate industrial processes, and the industrial decarbonisation program I talked about. They're all quite readable, these documents, as well, by the way, these days. That has the path to take some of the harder-to-abate things, like making glass, like making new green steel or aluminium, to take coal and other hydrocarbon-based fuels out of it. Adair knows all about this. He's much cleverer than me about all of this, but I didn't want to duck that one. I think the UK has now done a good job on coal. We've got to lay down the gauntlet to some others to follow. Well, is that fair-ish?
Yeah, I mean, the one issue, of course, is about the Cumbria one, which of course
which wasn't to burn for energy. And we've got to be, and because you're all brilliantly clever and understand that we live in one planet and one atmosphere, we've also got to just have half an eye on making sure we don't export carbon emissions to regimes that have less good governance, less transparency, very likely less labour protections as well. So I'll say, as the politician in me, there's a balance to be struck, but I do think even over the last 24 months, there's been a massive shift.
On thermal coal, we're doing fantastic.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
It'd be great to ask you more.
Can we have a tax on carbon that prices? I mean, we should absolutely increase the opportunity cost or the true cost of carbon. I mean, that's the most obvious thing. In some cases, that may be a carbon tax, just as we've now got a plastic tax or a tax on virgin plastic, not recycled. In other cases, it may be an industry-specific intervention that has the same purpose, like a trading scheme. You're going to talk later on in the afternoon about nature-based solutions, and high-quality nature-based solutions have a massive role to play. A massive role, we're one planet in wealth transfers between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere, in protecting pristine nature that's currently at risk as we speak today. So there's lots of different levers on that one.
So let's do one more minute, one more question from Jamie, the founder of Rethink X. How optimistic are you, and what do you see as the most needed or most promising moonshot projects happening?
I'm incredibly optimistic. I absolutely believe in the capacity of human beings to solve these problems, our ferocious problem-solving power. We've got to get this out of, and I see this every day. I started this job in November. It's only 6 months on, and I can see how people and organisations have moved. As of today, 43 of the largest companies in the UK have committed to net zero. They're now going from the corner office in the boardroom to their chief operating officer or their head of manufacturing or their head of transportation and saying, hey guys, this is what we're going to do, correct, this is what you're going to do, and it now becomes a tractable set of problems. The technologies are being put in place day by day. I can't think of a process. Aviation, right? We have a big, hairy, audacious goal of crossing the Atlantic on a zero carbon basis. When that was set at the first Jet Zero gathering, the first time we inaugurated the Jet Zero Council, there wasn't even remotely a path. There wasn't PowerPoint, there wasn't anything. Already people are starting to slice that problem down. There are hydrogen flights that have taken place 100 kilometers. They've now got to scale it up in terms of the volume, the size of the airframe. But it's being treated as a tractable problem. And by so doing, we will solve this in almost all of the domains that we need to.
Great. Well, on that optimistic note, thank you very much, Andrew Griffith.